So before I start, I just want to talk about traditional CRM. It isn't dying, it's dead. We all know that. And today's session, we're going to talk about the past, where CRM is going. And really, I'm going to give you not the answer, because you would probably have to pay me for that, but really just a few thought starters on ways to navigate this landscape. And throughout the presentation, I am going to punctuate it with some mindless interactivity. So this is my first time doing it. I have no issues embarrassing myself, and hopefully you'll play along. And as we know, the most entertaining things are mindless. Let's see, what else? And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's the setup. And if I didn't mention, I actually have prizes. So here you go. Ooh, free lunch snacks. I'm going to try to get this. Hello? So back in the day, CRM was really straightforward. So this is kind of the hot tub time machine version of CRM. It was kind of plug and play, right? And with that, it really was a fairly linear process. And by that I mean, you maybe had your banner, you viewed it, engage, click. Maybe you go to a website, you register. And then you get email where you open, click, act, and forward. Really, a lot of times still, when I hear about CRM, people are talking about email or direct mail. Pretty straightforward. And life was simple then. Those were the days of big dreams and big hair. Interactive portion. Which movie was this from? Okay, who said it loudest? What? Where? Ferris Bueller? Anybody over there? Yay, Jelly Bellies. Great. This is too easy. I'll make it a little harder. But that was then, and this is now. So CRM and Charlie Sheen's life has gotten a lot less pretty. How did we get there? Well, you know, you still have the basics, like paid media, you've got the website, you've got email, of course, but even within the website itself, you've got other metrics that you're engaging with: visit, engagement, repeat visit, acting, recommend. And that doesn't even include all of the other things that are coming into play these days. Of course, you've got YouTube, the Twitter, and the Facebook. And what's interesting about this is that there are a lot more different ways for consumers to interact with you today. The next thing is that a lot of them are interacting with you in ways that really bypass your traditional view, click, register, open email stream. So when I look at this, I kind of think about, you know what, I may actually argue that someone who is viewing your YouTube video, commenting on it, maybe even submitting a video of their own, could be potentially more valuable, at the very least just as valuable, as someone who's registering for your email. One quote that I'm going to read so I don't mess it up is that, actually I don't have it, but I will try to remember it. Einstein has a sign over his office, and it says something like, just because something is countable doesn't mean it counts. And just because something counts doesn't mean it's countable. So sort of interesting in terms of, are you trying to get some candy?
No, that's all of this. It's right here. That's all I want.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that's one of the challenges we're dealing with today. So how did things get messy? Well, I'm going to blame the two-headed monster. Interactive portion coming up. Name the Simpson characters. This is a tough one.
Selma and Thelma.
What was it?
Selma and Thelma.
Close. Close. That was half right. Selma and... I'll give it to you. And who are they? That's right. Last name, anybody?
Bouvier.
Ooh, nice. I wasn't expecting that. I think it's Selma and Patty.
Sorry, I was saying back.
Huh? Are you Googling it, or?
No.
Okay. So as you noticed, I took the high road here. I could have taken the low road and talk about the goddesses. I won't. I'll just leave that one to die. So the two-headed monster, who are they? Measurement and messaging. First, we'll talk about measurement. We'll jump right in. And by measurement, I'm not talking about the value of a Facebook fan. Brian Morrissey started this about a year ago with the famous Facebook fan is worth $3.60, soon followed by Facebook fan is definitely not worth $3.60. Most recently, an empirical review, so you know that's got to be real, $136.38. And then my favorite from Forrester, what's the value of a Facebook fan? 0. So this is not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about measurement. What I'm talking about is really this problem of identifiability. We've talked about this a little bit, it's come up. The issue is that we don't really know who we're talking to. So these may as well be the profiles of the people you're addressing. Interactive, name 2 non-Simpson characters on this slide.
And blue bear.
Anything else? How about this one?
Jason.
This one. No. No. Hellraiser. Okay, nobody gets a prize. Did you? Is it really?
Sorry.
Okay, you can't play anymore, Chris. He's out. Huh? It is from Hellraiser. Is his name's not Hellraiser? It's Pinhead? Oh, okay, sorry, my bad. All right. Fine. So over the past couple of years, you may have heard of some of these services, like Raply, Flowtown. What they purport to do is actually make you smarter and to figure out the value of your audience. So in particular, they were saying that what they were actually doing is overlaying your data with social media data to show how many fans somebody has, how many followers, how influential they are. For those of you who've been keeping on top of it, you know that in recent months, most if not all of these services have felt the wrath of Facebook and are really no longer in the original business of which they intended. Right? I see some smiles over there. It's like, yes, privacy. So what is the solution? Well, it's old school, but it's register now. For the time being, we have found that this is still really the best way to track, without a doubt, who you're talking to, wherever you're talking to them. The 2.0 layer also comes with some interesting tools. I'll talk about one right here. Pretty straightforward, actually, but we think it's a great idea. It's called Meteor Solutions. We've been using it for clients like Microsoft, T-Mobile, and most recently, Diageo. All they're doing is actually just appending a little unique code to the end of URLs, to all the share boxes, and what they're able to do then is actually tie sharing behavior back to the individual. And they do this at an anonymous level, or you can pair it with your database. So what's brilliant about this is really straightforward. You know, we have these refer a friend links and forward to a friend links on email. People don't use them. They grab the URL, they throw it into an email, and that's how they share. And that's why we love this solution. And with this Nikon Live case study in particular, some of the interesting things they found was that 60% of the visitors that came to this campaign came from a shared link. And that 5.2% of visitors drove 60% of referrals. These are all things that we kind of know intuitively, but it's pretty, amazing when you can actually see it. And you can go back and attribute it back to the individual who's doing the sharing. Something else they're doing, which I think is pretty cool, is what they call nth generation sharing, so that it's not just my sending it to you, but also the people that you're sending it to, the people you're sending it to, and so on, can all be attributed back to me. And it's not just traffic either, it's also registration, so that if, 5th generation out, I get a ton of registration from this initial referral, it gets credited back to me. And that is sort of interesting, too, if you think about a lot of times with media, we have people measuring against conversion, that first generation conversion, You converted or you didn't. What we're seeing actually with some clients is that there's some media placement that are drawing people who are more influential than others, where you're only looking at first generation. You're not really getting that complete view of how effectively that media is performing. And then it goes back to the other point that came out with the panel, that really it is about the conversion. And by doing this, you can get a really holistic view of that individual, not only what he's doing, what he's buying, but the people he's referring and the quality of those referrals. So with that measure, we'll get into the idea of messages, so the second head of the beast. Before we start, let's kind of step outside our perfect world for a while. Have any of you seen this at all? It's really funny, maybe potentially a little offensive. This tells you things real people don't say about their advertising. And we'll start with what they're not saying about email. That subject line totally reached out and grabbed me. They're not saying that. How about this? Cool, a banner ad. Not a lot of people are saying this. In terms of what they're not staying up late thinking about or losing sleep about, this engagement strategy does not speak to where I am in my life. And social media. I won't read this one. And nobody's viral made anybody LOL so hard that they were going to buy the car that was in it. So with that, I'm actually going to give you a little bit of quant. These are all pulled out of a fantastic report, if you want to jot this down, from Razorfish. Former colleagues of mine put out a report, I think just a few months ago, called Liminal, so Liminal. And they actually talked about a lot of different types of media and interactions and importance. So part of the problem is that there are a lot of ways to interact with your brand. So you look here, you have things like, you've got the email, website, word of mouth, face-to-face, all the way to postal mail, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. You guys can see that pretty well, right? And if you ask a marketer, so I took some liberties with the report. The report was conducted among consumers, but I took some liberties as to what the marketer's view might be. So if you ask marketers how important these things are, and taller the bar, the more important, you might see something like this. Oh yeah, these things are very important. You know, review website, maybe not. Oh yeah, my email newsletter, absolutely. Postal mail, sure, we spend a lot of time on it. LinkedIn, not sure. Twitter, I'm supposed to care about it. And location-based is the next big thing, so I think it's something I care about. And so what do you think we see when we ask consumers how important these different channels are? Not interactive. Something like this. So it's actually kind of mixed news, not entirely bad. You actually see some agreement across the top here with things like email, website, word of mouth, that was brought up before by Jeff, and how important those are to them. But what you're seeing is that towards, that long tail, even though these are things consumers are using, how important are they in terms of interacting with the brand? A little less so. And here's a little different view on the problem. So here they asked along these dimensions of feeling valued, efficiency, trust, consistency, relevance, control. And those are actually ranked by consumers in terms of how important they are. So valued is that the company makes me feel like they care about me, right? Efficiency, this is an interesting one, that the company that I'm dealing with respects my time when they're interacting with me. Trust is that it is what it sounds like. It's a company that I trust. Consistency, that the messaging I'm getting from this company is consistent. Ooh, sorry, how do I get this? This is good. Okay. Across the different channels. Relevance is what it sounds like. And then finally, control. Control is the one that I'm kind of intrigued by because we talk a lot about consumers want to be in control. But when you ask consumers, control, yeah, it's important. But consistently, it comes up as the least important thing they want when they're dealing with companies. They'd much rather that you value their time. They'd much rather that you give them messages that are relevant and you make them feel valued. So what this is saying is that the green bar, I know you're all kind of straining to look at what this means, shows the channels in which we are delivering on consumers' expectation, and the red boxes show where their expectations are not being met. Again, some good news here. So if you kind of think back to that previous, consumers are pretty satisfied with your email, your website. So a little more disconcerting is that when you look at the right side, some of the things that we're spending a lot of time and money on, like postal mail and print ad, or spending a lot of effort on, like social media, actually delivering mixed, if not altogether, under-delivering altogether to consumers. So what's the problem? Well, let's just say this is a portrait of your company, and part of the issue that came up across departments is that, well, IT doesn't understand marketing. I think within marketing we have some disagreements as well, right? So first of all, you've got the CRM guy. He wants his registration. You've got the brand guy, the MBA. It's about the brand, baby. You got the boss who's just looking for sales. And then, of course, you always have the digital guy who just wants some attention. Does this look kind of familiar in terms of what you're facing in your company? No, right? We all get along swimmingly. Well, organization is really just one of the two main issues when we're talking about messaging and why messaging isn't consistent. So first of all, you have things like competing or conflicting goals. Certainly have organizing by function or channel, and really no incentive to collaborate. But you also have a lot of people issues. So people issues like turf issues. People are protecting their budget, and bright, shiny object syndrome. I heard before, my boss comes in and, he wants a QR code. He wants a mobile campaign. And those things still happen. And these are all the factors that contribute to why consumers are a little disappointed in us these days. It's hard to fix this, and we all know, it's easy to talk about, but it's just something to be aware of. There are a lot of factors at play. We all want messaging. We all want everything to be green across the board, but the reality of organization and people issues do get into the way. So what to do? One idea is to think about your consumer base and to start from there. So it's really a trick. Works sometimes it doesn't. So let's talk about the audiences and starting from the audience perspective when it comes to messaging. So here you've got the two dimensions. You've got involvement, so how involved is this individual with your brand from low to high, and then identifiability from low to high. Do you know who they are? So first you've got an audience that we all know about. This is a committed. These are the guys who've been with you, will be with you till the bitter end, hopefully. You know who they are. They're very engaged. They're advocates of the brand. You also have the neophyte. These might be somebody that just learned about your company, just registered. Involvement's relatively low, but you know who they are. Got the curious. There's always a lot of people who are curious. Basically, this is the masses. Low identifiability, not quite sure who they are, and fairly low involvement with your brand. They're just kind of casual onlookers. And then finally, the incognito. So this is an interesting group, and it's really come up because of social media. These are the people that I described earlier who are out there interacting with your brand, talking about your brand, fairly low identifiability, but potentially pretty high involvement with you. So the goal is to move the neophyte, obviously, into a higher engagement state, and to think about ways to bring the curious and the incognito into a place where perhaps they are able to self-identify. We'll talk about some scenarios for that, but really just kind of one view and thinking about your consumers, your customer, and potentially one that you could rally around as a company. So we've talked about a lot of different dimensions of, traditional CRM is dead. The two-headed monster of new CRM and what that's bringing up. But really, most importantly, what are we going to call this thing? We need to brand it, right? Let's call it something sexy. Social CRM, I've heard. Not really loving it. The problem with social CRM is that it overstates the importance of social, completely understates the importance of things like offline interaction, events, print, direct mail, all of the things that are still an essential part of the mix. How about CRM 2.0? pretty much the same issue, and probably every couple of years you got to up that number. So, it doesn't really have a lot of staying power. Don't like that. And then eCRM, which I still kind of hear, I'm not quite sure what the E stands for. It's like excellent, maybe, like electronic something. Again, it's very channel specific. And that's something that I've noticed is that a lot of these designations for CRM tend to be, it's like, what's the next big thing? So it'll be like QR CRM. It might be, mobile CRM. But what I want to introduce to you is, I give you sound effect, I hope. Here we go. I give you Networked CRM. This is the last name for CRM you will ever need. The beauty of Networked CRM is that it's really spanning the consumer journey from attract, convert, retain across all the different channels, including bought, like display, paid search, own channels, like event, website, your partner, your retail location, email, mobile app, siteless, and your community. And then finally, the earned channel, word of mouth, Facebook, YouTube, third-party review, Flickr, and Twitter. You'll see, actually, that I actually have Facebook in two places. We find that Facebook is a really interesting one in that it can play a dual role in terms of attracting as well as retaining consumers, really kind of the different views of it, and it's worked out very well for our consumers. So I'm going to take a quick drink of water, let you absorb Networked CRM. And get back to it. So, problem solved, right? We've moved from traditional to Networked CRM. All is well with the world, and we can go on our merry way. Unfortunately, Skeptical Cat doesn't think so. So, interactive version. What's funnier, cat video, dog videos? Oh, yeah, totally, right? Thank you. Cat videos. I told you, it's totally pointless. Cat videos are cat and kitten videos, like the Roomba ones. I can watch those for like hours on end. So what I'm going to do, Skeptical Cat and skeptical people of the audience, is show you a couple of examples of how it comes to life. The first is an example not from a client of mine, but an example that I think is extremely well done, maybe done by somebody here in this room. And the second is from a client. So we'll start out with the one that is not. And it is from Nike Women. This is a campaign they have live right now. You can check it out. And their touch points across attract, convert, and retain include bought media like display, paid search. You've got owned. They've got an event. So the Nike Women Marathon happens every year. Nike Women, the site itself. They have a really neat integration with the iTunes Store, the Nike Store, email, mobile app, Nike Plus, which is their larger platform, and a communities. And then finally, earn. So these are pretty much the same: word of mouth, Facebook, YouTube, third-party review, Flickr, Twitter. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you how they're putting the different pieces together. So first, starting from their YouTube channel, where in this example, the video links into their Facebook page to encourage people to participate in this campaign. And then once you get into the Facebook page, pretty much front and center, you see that campaign again is very consistent. And right there on the main landing page, they're linking right into the Nike store so that they're talking about apparel in a very seamless fashion. And the Facebook wall posts, as you get into it, reinforce a message with a different spin. So this time they're recommending the Training Club mobile app and linking back to YouTube for a video about getting trained, or getting toned, rather. If you go into the website, you see right there, Facebook and Twitter is like front and center. Can't miss it. If you click over, you get into their Twitter experience. See, everything comes together. And I just grabbed this. This is the screen grab from a couple of days ago. So first, it links right into Facebook. The post itself links into the YouTube video. And then it links into the Nike's Women Marathon, where registration definitely front and center. And registration doesn't end just there. If you see it on the Nike Women's site, you'll see that there are a number of different ways for them to make it easier for you to register, for you to contact your friends by integrating with Gmail, and to share with friends. And really, overall, it just feels like a well-integrated experience. It feels like a team that's not fighting with each other. I don't know the details behind it, but everybody's kind of playing with everyone else towards this common campaign and this common cause, and I just think it's really beautifully done. And the second point, so in the Nike case, you see that they're using every single touch point as an on-ramp, which is a very key idea of Networked CRM. No longer that linear path, really is what are all the different ways we're interacting with them, and how are these different channels, how can they be used as attract, engage, as well as conversion channels. And here's Johnny Walker. This case study is really around focusing on one idea. So the story here is that Johnny Walker is a Diageo brand, not a huge brand. And I think for those of us in the room where, you don't have millions or tens of millions of dollars to spend every year on tons of different ideas, maybe you have one or two tent poles and you need to make the most of it. And this is a story about how we did that for them. So again, we start with the idea of Networked CRM, using display media, but making these tasting events, which happen throughout the country, in-person event, really the star of the entire program, and making that the central idea around which then we plug in these network elements, including the site, the welcome series for email as well as mobile. And then earned media, definitely leverage things like Facebook, Foursquare, Twitter, and to bring this campaign to life in a very efficient manner. There's no question about it that the main goal is to get people to register, to self-identify, and to attend the event. So it's not social for the sake of social, social for the sake of buzz. And as I mentioned before, the media solutions is what we use to understand how influential different people were. One insight, one interesting thing, is anybody a Scotch drinker here? A few, yeah? So how did you start drinking Scotch? When was the first time you drank Scotch?
Well, I played right into this, but I actually went to one of these events.
Oh, there you go. Job done. Is that how you started?
No, it's a
Oh,
story.
okay. Really?
It's really a true story.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I drank bourbon, and then I went to one of these events and started drinking Scotch.
This is not a plant. That's really, really cool. Well, what we know from research is that mostly young men, are not bellying up to the bar at TGI Friday for the first time and saying, I want to try a Scotch. Scotch is not easy to drink. Usually those of you who are drinking it probably have some story of a father-in-law, a boss, an older friend, I see a little nodding, who brought you into this. This whole idea of mentoring is extremely important for this category, and it just made sense for what we were doing. So here on the website, we certainly make it easy for people to register and understand about the events. And then on Facebook, we have that, really dual view. The first in terms of attracting people. So when they come, they are asked to register. They are told about the event. And then during the event period, we actually use Facebook as kind of a customer service mechanism. And again, you'll notice with every single response, even if we're not coming to your city, the call to action is to register. We want to know who you are, and we want to bring you into the fold. And so I'll actually switch this over to video. You've heard from me plenty. And you'll see a little bit more about this campaign.
the next 45 minutes, everyone in this room is going to be a whiskey lover. If it's okay with you, we're going to taste all 5 tonight, all right? We're going to nose the whiskeys, we're going to talk about aroma, we're going to taste the whiskeys, we're going to talk about flavor. Folks, it's Wednesday night, we're tasting some whiskey together. How you feeling tonight?
So how did you find out about this?
On the Johnny Walker website, actually.
I saw a tweet about it.
Facebook friends.
I got the email, and I know we like to drink some whiskey.
If you're a fan of Twitter at all, be sure to tweet as much as you would like.
I'm gonna tweet.
We'll probably talk about it on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. It's already my Facebook status.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
At this awesome Johnny Walker experience. Drink anything else but Johnny Walker for a very long time.
Makes everybody want to like go out and have a scotch tonight, right? Yeah, okay. Actually, I'm not a big scotch fan, but that's okay. So one interesting thing about this is that all of the social media component we just threw together in, I think it was like 3 working days. It was like, let's do Foursquare, let's do a hashtag. These are, fun, easy things. What this isn't showing is the media solution implementation that we're taking place now. So got a little hiccup here. No?
Start it over. Can we go to wherever it was?
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah.
Yeah. You should be good.
Great. So very quickly, we're going to wrap up about putting it all together and how you can apply this. So going back to the different audiences, and your, 2x2 might look a little bit different from this, but again, going back to that audience view of, for the curious, if he's coming in through word of mouth and hearing about things from Facebook and YouTube, how do we introduce him to the brand with relatively low commitment ways of participating? That is, what is his reason for registering? And you got to give him one. The neophyte, how do you migrate him towards loyalty? Using things like continuous education and inspiration, welcome program, welcome series still work. They work really well. In terms of the committed, a lot of times I think we don't pay enough attention to retention. We figure somebody's in, they're there, they're done. Well, in fact, a lot of people get disenfranchised. We see email database turnover of about 1/3 every year. So, you are losing folks, and it's so easy to keep them. Just drive them into some of the other things that you're already doing. Keep him continuously engaged. And then the incognito, really an interesting one. So I would actually say encourage the stuff he's already doing. But again, going back to that register now, give him a reason to self-identify. So that's pretty much it. With the takeaways, we've got 3 quick ones. The first, think network, not linear. The second is consider every single touch point of your program as an on-ramp. And then finally, focus on a single idea. So hopefully I've given you a few tools to tame the 2-headed monster. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for playing along.
Thank you so much, Margie. That was awesome. Does anyone have any questions while we have her captive?
Excuse me, one was on Twitter. If registration is the answer, how do you decide what info to collect from the consumer?
Oh, that's always a good one, right? I think registration's a workaround for identifiability until we get a facial recognition and retina scan in place. It really is, it's just a proxy, right? So, don't take this the wrong way. It's the way that we are getting to the point so we know who we're talking to. The right information to collect, the answer depends, but ultimately as little as possible, but really think about what am I going to do with this information? Do you need it to be explicit, can be overlaid? Because we do see a lot of drop-off. The longer the registration form, these are all things that you are aware of. So make it easy for them, but most importantly, give them a value add. Sometimes you find that if the value add or that value exchange is significant enough, people would jump through a lot of hoops. So kind of think about all of those different equations. Okay.
Any others from the audience? We have the EVP and Strategic Services of Wonderman standing right in our presence.
I actually didn't even give out. I have beef jerky, so in case anybody wants beef jerky here. So hopefully I haven't embarrassed myself too much, and thank you for being a willing audience.
Thank you.